So, the IG report has laid out a bunch of issues with the way that the FBI handled FISA. Okay, pro-Trump FBI agent also texted, "Start looking for new jobs, fellas," on the day after the election. So that was also uncovered. But now you have the conclusions are from Horowitz that this was not politically motivated. Having an investigation like this was not improper. Okay, so I guess you could argue, based on what Horowitz has said, if the president of the United States has been accused of committing a crime, even if there's no evidence of it, that the government should investigate, which means we should be investigating Joe Biden and his son, right? Because he's been accused of crimes for several years now. You have Ukrainian government officials who say that they have paid him, Joe Biden specifically, and somewhat directly, hundreds of thousands of dollars in lobbying fees. Okay, they said that about Joe Biden, not Hunter Biden. Okay, so the president then calling for, an investigation or something like that would be, according to the inspector general, normal. All right, not saying that he's guilty of anything, but investigating into it. So then you have the attorney general, William Barr. He says that the IG report makes clear that the FBI launched an intrusive investigation. Attorney General William Barr released a statement on Monday following the release of the Inspector General report, asserting that it makes clear that the FBI launched an intrusive investigation of a U.S. presidential campaign on the thinnest of suspicions that, in my view, were insufficient to justify the steps taken. And based on the evidence, traditionally should not have been able to go into a FISA court with this evidence and got a warrant, okay? I know that the FISA court is very permissive on issuing warrants, but the standards for what you're supposed to take into a FISA court to obtain a warrant were not met with this whole situation. The IG report released on Monday essentially concluded that the FBI possessed an authorized purpose to investigate the 2016 Trump campaign, but conceded that the Bureau took a number of missteps and committed a series of wrongdoings in the process. The report specifically cites significant inaccuracies and omissions, and again, including exculpatory information, in the Bureau's application to surveil Carter Page. Let's see. As part of our review, we also sought to determine whether there was evidence that political bias or other improper consideration affected decision-making in Crossfire Hurricane, including the decision to open the investigation. We discussed the issue of political bias in a prior OIG report, review of various actions in advance of the 2016 election, where we described text and instant messages between then Special Counsel and the Deputy Director, Lisa Page, and then Section Chief Peter Strzok, among others, that included statements of hostility towards then-candidate Trump and statements of support for then-candidate Hillary Clinton. In this review, we found that while Lisa Page attended some of the discussions regarding the opening of the investigation, she did not play a role in the decision to open Crossfire Hurricane or the 4 individual cases. The report has individuals on both sides of the political aisle, of course, claiming victory. Barr released a statement asserting that the report found that the FBI launched an intrusive investigation of a presidential campaign on the thinnest of suspicions that, in my view, were insufficient to justify the steps taken. Nothing is more important than the credibility and integrity of the FBI and the Department of Justice. That is why we must hold our investigators and prosecutors to the highest ethical and professional standards. That's what his statement said. Now, you have U.S. Attorney John Durham, who flipped this to a criminal investigation. Again, his investigation is wholly separate from Michael Horowitz's investigation. The Inspector General investigation has no punitive possibilities whatsoever. It is purely administrative. Durham's investigation is criminal. He can indict people. He can bring charges. We knew that that was not going to happen until this Horowitz report from the IG came out. And so now we can expect Durham to start moving things forward. Now, if you remember correctly on the timeline, the moment those 2 missing BlackBerry phones were found, Durham flipped it to a criminal investigation. We have an FBI agent who is now currently under criminal investigation, I think he's been charged or indicted anyway. And this thing has really started to move along. So U.S. Attorney John Durham said today that the Department of Justice did not agree with the Inspector General report into the investigation of President Donald Trump's political campaign. Quote, based on the evidence collected to date, and while our investigation is ongoing, last month we advised the Inspector General that we do not agree with some of the report's conclusions as to prediction and how the FBI case was opened. That's what Durham said in a statement. Horowitz report found that there was serious performance failures by the supervisory and non-supervisory agents, including 17 significant errors in the FISA applications to surveil Carter Page, but said there was no evidence of intentional misconduct, which basically what Horowitz is saying is that the FBI really, really screwed up, and we don't think that they meant to do it. You could say, if you remember this line, you could say that the FBI broke the law, but they weren't sophisticated enough to know that they were doing it. Does that sound familiar? That's exactly what then FBI Director James Comey said about Hillary Clinton. Yes, she broke the law, but she wasn't sophisticated enough to know that she was doing it. Durham, who continues to investigate the origins of the Russia investigation, said that his investigation would be more robust, including details of actions of people outside of the Justice Department. For the record, we did not expect the IG report to really hit hard. We expected for that to give some ammunition for Durham to then have his way with the criminal side of things, okay? Our investigation has included developing information from other persons and entities, both in the U.S. and outside of the U.S., Durham wrote. Attorney General Barr also stated his skepticism of how Horowitz's report concluded with a statement noting the FBI launched an investigation based on the thinnest of suspicions, which you already know. Okay, so Durham basically says he thinks it's politically motivated and it was intentional. And he's got evidence to back it up. Now, Durham was brought in. He's a U.S. attorney, well-respected U.S. attorney, because he can indict people and he can make charges actually happen. Okay, people can be arrested and charged with crimes. Whereas Horowitz, none of that can happen. It's all administrative. Remember, Horowitz has got to think about his job security too. I think it was a fine report. It pointed out that there were some serious errors. He just wouldn't conclude that those errors were intentional because, again, he wants to keep his job. Whereas Durham doesn't have to worry about any of that. Durham can then say, well, even the Inspector General report said that all of these mistakes were made. I'm just telling you that they were purposeful. And that's why I'm charging so-and-so with said crime. Okay, so that's what we assume is going to happen. Got more coming up. News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel.